Welcome to the Mega Talks podcast. This is episode 15. iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube. Those are some of the places that you can find the Mega Talks podcast. Do a search in your browser. Sit back and listen to the episode. About to do episode 15 right now with David Bair. But what I want to see from you guys, all the listeners out there, is I want you to follow the show. Pick one of the platforms, follow it, like it, share it with your friends, subscribe to it. If you listen on iTunes, go leave a review. Leave a good review there. Leave your name, a comment. That's going to help with the ratings of the show, boost them up so I can get a little bit more notoriety for the guests that I have on the show. Today I'm speaking with David Bair. He's known as Bair the Comic. If you're on social media, look him up. B-A-I-R, the Comic. All right, guys. Welcome to Mega Talks. I'm here with David Bair. And how you doing today, David?
I'm doing pretty good, man.
All right. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself? I know that you're a comic, and I think you have a nickname, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, it's not really a nickname. My last name is Bair, and ever since I was in the military, I've always gone by my last name. So once I started getting on stage, I just kept that up, and I really don't go by David. Like most of my family, they'll call me David, but for the most part, I just go by Bair.
Like Bair the Comic?
Yeah, like it's a funny story because on Facebook, they won't let you put just one name. So you always have to have two names. So for my comedian page, I put Bair the Comic just because I didn't want to put my first name on it. Uh-huh. And then a lot of people just assumed that I wanted people to call me Bair the Comic. And I really don't care. Like if you call me Bair, if you call me David Bair, it's not that big a deal. Yeah.
And where did you grow up at?
I'm from Garden, Arkansas.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, that's just south of Arkadelphia, and I grew up on my grandparents' horse ranch there.
Oh, yeah. I think our football team played Garden back in, like the early or late 80s, somewhere around there. That's been forever ago. But how did you, growing up in Garden, how did you become to, be interested in comedy or performing comedy?
Well, it's for me, I was always a fan of stand-up, and I grew up watching like the Blue Collar Comedy Tour. I watched Jeff Dunham, I watched Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock, those kind of things, and I was always in awe of what they could do and how they could make a crowd laugh. And then after high school, I went to Oklahoma State for a while. Then I joined the military. Then I ended up at Arkansas Tech. So I had a lot of different life experiences, and my friends always said that I was funny, and so I just thought one day I'll give it a try, and I went to an open mic, and from then I was hooked, and I was like, I never want to do anything else.
Oh, yeah. So you were more of the performer type of comic, the performer funny guy with stories and things, because I know some people that are more funny with like their actions or maybe their faces that they make, but that doesn't translate when you try to perform.
Right. And a lot of it is, especially at the open mic level, you see a lot of people that are really good writers and then people that are really good performers. And then the ones that take it to the next level are the ones that can combine the two. And that's what I'm currently trying to do. Like my writing is probably my weakest skill set that I have right now. And that's why I make it a point to write every single day. That way it's just like a sword. You just got to sharpen it every single day. Just sharpen it a little bit more. And eventually you'll get to where. Yeah, man.
How do you approach the writing? Because I've always been interested in like the comedy side, but when I come up with stuff funny, it just kind of comes and goes. I don't bother to write stuff down. Is that how it works for you? I mean, you have a fun experience, kind of write it down, or?
Well, and it depends on what I want to talk about. So a lot of times I'll sit down and I'll have a blank piece of paper in front of me, and I won't be able to think of anything that I want to say or relevant or anything remotely funny. So what I'll do is I'll think of like just an interesting story or something interesting that happened to me, and I'll write down everything that I remember about the story in order, and then I'll go through and put punchlines or little jokes or little tidbits that I think are funny, like
Uh-huh.
every 2 or 3 lines,
Uh-huh.
and then that's how I build a story. And sometimes it's just like I'll go out with my friends and be hanging out with people and say something funny, or someone will say something funny, and it'll get everybody to laugh. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll try to remember that and then duplicate that or recreate that on stage.
Oh yeah. You ever record anything, like secretly record them?
No, nothing like that, but I try to make a mental note.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I know some people, with I don't know, YouTube technology today, some people do audio live recordings or video recordings when they go out just to, to review the videos and just kind of do homework.
Yeah, I ain't got that much time, dude. I'll just like if I'm hanging out with my friends, I'm just there to have a good time. If somebody says something funny, cool, I'll make a note of it. If not, I'll just write later.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, most of my I record all of my sets, and then it's so painful to watch yourself on stage, especially if you didn't do very well. But it's very important to go back and watch and see, okay, I forgot a tag here, or I lost the crowd here, or
Mm-hmm.
how can I make this better? And so that's where I spend most of my time is either writing or going back over what I've already written, and then trying to make it better.
Yeah. What was your first performance, or when and where was it at?
It was July 6th of last year at a place called Hibernia. It's an Irish pub off of Rodney Parham in Little Rock. They've got a weekly open mic on every Thursday night, run by a comic named Paul Hodge,
Uh-huh.
and he gave me my first shot, man, and I owe it all to him.
Oh yeah. How did it go?
It went all right. I brought several friends, and I got a couple of good laughs, which made me feel really good,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't bomb too terribly. And then because of that, I was like, oh well, I guess I'm going to go back and try it again. And
Yeah.
then it wasn't until a couple weeks in that I had my first real bomb,
Mm-hmm.
and then you know just trying out new things. If you're not bombing, you're not challenging yourself,
Yeah.
especially at a beginner level.
Uh-huh.
And if you've got jokes that like if you've got 5 minutes that kills, if you just go up there at every open mic doing the same 5 minutes over and over and over again, like you're not challenging yourself. You're not making yourself a better comic. As soon as you have to as soon as something happens that you're not expecting, you're gonna fall.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's about putting yourself constantly outside of your comfort zone in as front of many crowds as you can and as much stage time as you possibly can.
Now, do your friends tell you bomb, or is that something like yourself?
Oh, that's definitely something you know yourself. All your friends are going to be like, "Oh no, man, you did fine. No, you did great." Because I mean, they're your friends.
Uh-huh.
But like, I've got one friend that he's a true friend because he'll tell me he's like, "Man, that sucked."
That's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but no, you usually know yourself because like, especially I've got a story right now that I'm telling that I've told it enough on stage that I know the reaction. Like, I know its potential
Mm-hmm.
reaction. I've seen how it like in the perfect situation, it'll hit really, really well and get a really big gut busting laugh. And then, so if it's not that to me, then I'm like, okay, how do I get it back to that?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like last night, for instance, I did a mic, and it was the mic I was just telling you about earlier at Hibernia. And I started off with some new stuff, and it was in front of a predominantly like conservative older crowd. And I was um, pretty raunchy, and it
Uh-huh.
just didn't go over well.
Yeah.
And so it's not necessarily that I need to throw the jokes out. It's just more about knowing your audience. And
Mm-hmm.
last night I was kind of like, yeah, it was a personal victory for me because once I saw the crowd, I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I need to change my plan and do something else to make these people happy. But
Yeah.
then I was like, no, I came here to work on this particular set, so I'm going to work on these jokes. And that was just a more mental victory for me, forcing myself to sit through that.
Yeah. That is a
Because if I
challenge.
can, yeah, because if you can sit through that and try to find a way to pull yourself out of that, it'll make you better.
Mm-hmm. Now, before you perform at a club or somewhere, do you get a chance to sit at the door and watch the people as they come in, or maybe interview them to find out a little bit about them?
Um, I mean, yeah, you'll see people come in and maybe you'll talk to a few of them, but I wouldn't really call it interviewing them.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of get a feel for it, and if I'm going first, then I'll try to break the ice. That's usually the hardest spot is whoever's going up and hosting, whoever's going first.
Uh-huh.
But like for me, and I'm so new anyway, I don't have as much material as some of the comics that have been doing it for 4, 6, 8 years,
Yeah.
and so my material is my material. It's not like I have, okay, I'm going to do this set if it's this kind of crowd or this set if it's that kind of crowd. I'm just going to do my stuff and try to adjust it or tweak it accordingly on stage.
Mm-hmm. No, really off the cuff type of things.
Yeah, well, there's some stuff. It just happens at whatever's in the moment, because if you're too rehearsed, like say you're on stage and a busboy in the back drops a plate of dishes. Well, if you just keep on going and you don't call attention to it, then the crowd's going to know that you're not in the moment with them. You're reciting something.
Yeah.
But you've got to be loose enough to be able to go off the cuff when you need to, but you need to know your material well enough that you can always come back to it.
Yeah, because that kind of stuff can ruin your timing.
Yeah, it can mess with the timing, and like you'll see it. Even real big time professional comedians, they'll start a joke, something will happen in the crowd, they'll address it, then they'll restart the joke. They won't go back from where they left off.
Mm-hmm.
They'll get everybody back on board with the same thought and then continue. And just little tips and tricks like that you learn as you go on, what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, I think it's kind of hard because, you know, when you're out with your friends, you start saying something and everybody laughs too long and you forget what you're talking about.
Yeah. It you learn really quickly to like as soon as you see people laughing, you start remembering it quickly. At first you're like, oh man, what were we laughing about? Oh, I forgot about that. But as you like, for me, I'm addicted to comedy now. Like this is I thought I was passionate about other things before until I found this. But once I found this, man, I was just like, okay, I am in love with this art. And so
that's cool.
Now when I see people laughing, I'm just like, okay, what are they laughing at? Why are they laughing? How can I make them laugh? And you got to be careful, because you never want to be that guy that's out in public and hanging out with your friends and all you're focused on is like doing material for them, because that's just not cool. But at the same time, I am always trying to learn and be observant to what people are laughing at.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. And
yeah.
You were talking about writing jokes and you know the things that you write. How is it from the writing process to performing on stage? Because like, were you ever comfortable with public speaking? Because usually people are deathly afraid of speaking in front of an audience, especially writing things down and being able to remember and then translating that on stage.
Yeah, I mean, if you're human, you're going to get nervous before you get on stage. It's just, for me, it's just a way of framing it, because for me, getting nervous is the same thing as getting excited. And anytime I feel like I feel anxious or I feel that anxiety coming on, I just constantly tell myself that I'm not nervous, I'm excited. Mm-hmm. And it's more of a like right before a big football game, you're like, put me in, coach, kind of thing. Oh, yeah. It's like, I want the chance to rise to the occasion. Yeah. And I saw on your Facebook, I know you do train MMA and do jiu-jitsu. Like I was a white belt, did jiu-jitsu for a little bit, and I've done bull riding, I've done bronc riding, like I've done more extreme things. So getting on stage for me, it's not that I don't have the same type of fear response that other people have in that moment, just because I've done other things where I was actually in danger. Yeah. So yeah,
to get some of the same emotions going to control them.
Yeah, for me, it's really weird, because I didn't expect it to be, but it's the exact same feeling. Like right before, when I'm backstage, before I'm about to go on, it's the same feeling as tying my hand in a shoe. Mm-hmm. Like it's the same type of adrenaline, the type of focus, the type of, I need to be at the top of my game right now. It's just not the same consequences if I mess up.
Yeah. So did you have like any special classes, or like maybe there were some things online special for comics like to go to learn how to write, or a writing process, or performing? Or
I mean, everybody's got a YouTube video out or something. I ended up taking Steve Martin's masterclass on comedy, and it helped me out a lot. But I mean, I could watch Steve Martin all day. I'm never going to be Steve Martin. Mm-hmm. I've got to, and I here at Arkansas Tech in Russellville, I took a writing for performance class where we were writing plays. Wow. So we were writing like 5-10 minute plays, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I used that and always was trying to write comedy sketches and things like that for that class. Yeah. And then that got me into acting through the school. and that helped me on the performance side of once I get something written on paper, how do I take that and then make it believable on stage? And so those are the kind of the classes that I've taken, but everybody's got their different advice, and everybody's got a different way, their own process of how they do it. But the most important thing is keep showing up. Every time there's a mic, go to it. Every time you have a chance to learn something, do it. Every time you have a chance to go on the road and do a new club or do a new show, do it, because it's only going to make you better.
Mm-hmm. How many shows do you think you have total now?
Oh, dude, I started in July, and I've been doing 3-4 open mics a week. Not every week, because some weeks something will happen. I'll only do 2 mics, or I may only do 1 mic. Mm-hmm. But I've been doing open mics consistently since July, and I started getting my first paid gig I got in August, which I was not ready for. So I was less than a month in, and I had a gig in Sand Springs, Oklahoma, and it turned out going really well. Mm-hmm. And since then, I've had other paid gigs in Oklahoma and Missouri, places like that. And it's just, I usually get like 1 or 2 paid gigs a month. And when I say paid, I mean like they'll pay your gas to get there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm definitely not rolling in the dough or anything, but
still at that lower level so far.
Yeah, but it's still, it's getting a foot in the door, and it's getting my name out there, and it's getting me to meet more cool people, get to meet more cool comics. Mm-hmm. And most of your work comes from other comics, because comics from all over the country be like, yeah, I'm putting on a show this one night here. Oh, yeah. I need 2 comics. And most of the time, like, especially if you're going on the road with somebody, it's not necessarily who's the funniest, because you're not going to take the funniest guy with you on the road. Mm-hmm. You're going to take with you whoever you have the most fun with.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is just being a chill dude and not being an asshole to everybody. Because there's some people that
carry around that ego.
Yeah, they do. And the Little Rock scene is fortunate, because in Little Rock we have very little bit of that. Most of the people are very supportive, very encouraging of each other. But there are some of everybody's got their bad apples. Mm-hmm. And like, those are the people that when we have a spot, it's like, hey, I need somebody to come with me to Tulsa. We don't ask them to go, and they kind of weed themselves out.
Yeah, they're the last people to get their number called.
Yeah.
Mm. Now, I've heard this thing about comics. They have a certain, they call it a bit. Is that anything? Like, do you have a certain bit that you do, like a style of comedy? I guess I'm not exactly.
No, I try to keep it as honest to myself as possible. Because as a young comic, I'm still trying to find my voice on stage. Oh, okay. And so I try to keep it as honest to who I am. And I'm a big white guy with a big beard. And so and I wear cowboy boots. So people, they see me, they think like redneck, backwoods hillbilly. And then that's part of my upbringing, but that's not all of who I am. Like I have. And so it's really fun to play with that stereotype a little bit, and then show the juxtaposition of my actual character, and show that I'm actually far from that. Like, I'm way more than just that. Mm-hmm. And so, but it's not really a style, or I would say that the one thing that I don't like doing is clean comedy, and not because my jokes are inherently dirty. Like, a lot of my stuff is PG-13, PG, that you could say in front of your kids. It's just that I never want to be on stage and feel like I have to censor myself. Yeah. And there are some, I'll talk about everything from like a deer running across the road to the most raunchy sexual thing that I think is funny. It's just like, I don't ever want to put those handcuffs on myself to where it's like, okay, I have to be clean in this moment. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of a hindrance, because a lot of people, when you go places, they want you to be clean. And so I'm trying to learn how to
balance it too, I guess.
Yeah, balance it too, because on one hand, I want to be able to get as much stage time as possible, but on the other hand, I want to be as true to myself as possible and not censor myself.
Yeah. So people, you hit that higher level and they kind of know what to expect. They're not expecting, oh, he's just going to come up here and he's just going to do the, a clean bid and, be in and be out. Yeah.
That's not really who I like in my personal life. That's not who I am. And so I try not to be that on stage.
Yeah.
The comic.
I know. Go ahead. Growing up, watching Whoopi Goldberg, when I was a kid, she was, she was pretty, had a foul mouth and, pretty raunchy on stage, same as Eddie Murphy. But you look at them both today and you ask
Right.
kids about them and they're the cleanest people. They're making kids movies and shows, and she has her own talk show, and you wouldn't
Right.
expect that out of them when you look back in their past.
Yeah. And for me, big piece of advice that I got at the Joint, which is a place in North Little Rock where I do a lot of mics, and in my opinion, it's the best club in Arkansas. But they advice I got there was, if you can't be funny, be honest.
Yeah.
And so I've always tried to stick with that, because like if you are honest on stage and it just the slight bit interesting, people are going to give you the time. So like if you come out and you do say 40 seconds and you haven't gotten a real joke yet or a real laugh, but you're interesting and honest, people are going to keep listening to you.
Yeah.
But if people can smell that bullshit, or smell that it's just an act, or smell that it's not really who you are, they will turn on you. And the worst thing in the world is when someone in the crowd is funnier than you are, and they start heckling you.
Yeah.
Like, because you've got to, you got to be honest about it, because sometimes they are funnier, and that sucks so much.
Uh-huh.
We at the World Series of Comedy, for the first prelim for it this year, it was a small crowd, and there was a father with his two daughters, and the first comic that went up started hitting on the daughters, and then started just dogging the dad.
Oh wow.
And the dad started responding and was funnier than the comic on stage.
That is cool.
It was hilarious, but unfortunately the guy bombed and then didn't make it to the next round.
Uh-huh.
And so
wrong thing to do.
It is what yeah. He's a good guy. I know him. He's a good guy. He'll definitely don't think
that's one of those times it would have benefited to meet those people coming through the door.
Yeah. It's like, oh, hey, yeah, the one gentleman in here with the two women, yeah, like that's their dad. So definitely don't piss him off. But so you run into stuff like that, and then you run into like really crazy people on the road too. Like I've had so many people like do weird stuff, like especially like I guess my demographic is like 40-year-old old divorced women. Like so, like after the show, they'll be really drunk and they'll come over and just say the most off the wall things, and it's funny, but it's also weird. It's something that I've never had that experience. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
That's interesting. That's the stuff that you need on video when they come up to you and you make your highlight reel off of that.
Yeah.
Because that tells everybody out there that, that's your market and you entertain and, kind of boosts you up there above the rest.
Yeah. A lot of people forget that it is a business. And so you do have to brand yourself, and you do have to put yourself out there in a way that's marketable. Mm-hmm. And it's just, for me, my goal right now is to focus on the funny and to be as funny as I possibly can, and then let the business come as it comes.
Mm-hmm. Do you find it like, I know I was a musician, and played at some clubs in random places, and I know other bands that have been around, and sometimes you get into a certain club and you find yourself just spending all your time there and playing there, and you kind of get used to it, and before you know it, you're in the 6 months of just staying on the same level, no advancement. Is it kind of like that in comedy, where some people can kind of get stuck in one club and that's all they do?
You definitely play to your competition, and that's why, like, a lot of comics, once someone starts getting really good, they'll start shitting on them, and they'll start like dogging them, and what it is they're being a hater, and they're just jealous because the other person's like on fire. Mm-hmm. And my philosophy that I try to take is that iron sharpens iron. So if I've got somebody that goes up before me and they just kill and have a killer set, that means that I've got to step my game up, because I've got to follow that. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I want. I want to be surrounded by the funniest people that I can possibly be surrounded by. Because if I'm hanging out with them and everybody's funny, we're going to be coming up with funnier ideas together, just off the cuff doing stuff. And on stage, it forces me to become a better comic. Because if not, I'm going to get up there and eat a big old bag of dicks, and it's not going to feel very good.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Yeah, you never want to be the smartest person in the room or the funniest person. That way you're always, boosting your game. You're always learning something.
Right. And Little Rock is very fortunate right now. Little Rock's comedy scene is, since I've been in, like I said, I started in July of last year, and it is just, the talent has exploded with comics that are really, really good and that could easily go to like New York, LA, and start a career there and be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And so that has helped me out a lot, and I'm friends with all of them. So it's helped me out to make my level has gone up because theirs has. And so that's the only thing about me, is that I don't want to stagnate, is I don't want to get into a position to where, like you said, I think that I'm the funniest in the room, because if I'm the funniest in the room, I'm not trying hard enough.
Yeah. Now, do you have a specific flow, like how you start your show and how you end your show based on? Well, I don't know if you have 15 minutes set time or if you have a half hour or how that works, but I just wonder if you had like a flow that you, I don't know, I guess like an outline that you kind of stick to.
Yeah, I mean, I always have a set list when I go on stage, and each show is usually a different amount of time. So, like, if I'm hosting a show, I usually have 10 to 15 minutes to do. If it's an open mic, you could have anywhere from 3 to 8, just depending on the mic where you're at. I haven't got a feature spot yet, which a feature spot is 30 minutes. So the way most comedy shows are broken down is you have a host, a feature, and a headliner. And the host will do 10 to 15, the feature will do 20 to 30, and the headliner will do 45 to an hour.
Wow.
And so
that's a good time.
Yeah. And I am on the host level. And so open mic host level, that area. And so for me, 15 minutes is the maximum amount of time that I've got right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the way I set it up is I have a set list that I go on stage, and I memorize it the same way that I would memorize like lines if I was acting.
Mm-hmm.
And then I try to get it to where I know every single word, every transition so well that once I get on stage, now I can be loose. I can relax. I can, if I want to go off the cuff, I can. That way I know my set list in my head. I know what sentence I ended on, so I know exactly what sentence I can come back on.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's in my opinion, a mistake that I see a lot of newer comics make is they don't know their material well enough. It's just because they haven't got up on stage and done it enough and gone through the repetitions. But like, if you know every single sentence and every word that you're going to say,
mm-hmm.
if something happens and you get off, or if anything messes up, you can always come right back to it. And then you're never on stage going like, oh crap, what was I going to say? Or what was I going to talk about?
Yeah.
Because that's a terrible feeling, is to have 40, 50 faces staring at you.
With dead silence.
Dead silence, and you have nothing to say for them. It's empowering when you get up there and you can use that silence. So once you have that tool in your toolbox, you can use that silence to build the tension. And then the audience is now, they're going to be wanting to laugh to release the tension. And so you just build that tension as much as you can, and then give them that line. And then that's how you grow laughs and make them bigger.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You ever had the moments when you go up there and you just run through your material too fast?
Yeah. I definitely did that when I was first starting out, going way too fast. And then what you call it, stepping on your laughs. So like if I say a setup and a punchline, and then the audience starts laughing, and then before they're done laughing, I start going into the next joke. I stepped on that laugh, and I killed all the momentum that I was just building. Now I got to start over. And I used to be really bad about that. I would hear a laugh, I would get excited, like, all right, here's another joke. Okay, here's another joke. And then it was kind of like a low laughs all the way through, instead of getting those really big gut busting, memorable laughs that you want.
Yeah.
And it's a timing thing, because you can let a laugh go too long and then you lose it, but you definitely don't want to step on it. So it's just it's a balancing act, and every crowd is kind of different with the timing. I mean, you get, like you were just saying earlier, you get into a flow where you just instinctively know when to start talking, when to stop talking, especially the more you do it, because you feel the crowd. But it's ebbs and flows, and you just got to get in that zone. And I compare it a lot to jiu-jitsu, and I compare it a lot to surfing. Like, you just got to find that wave and don't fight the wave. You just got to ride it and let the audience build the wave, and you just ride it and you direct them. Because most of the time, if people are coming to a comedy show, they're coming to laugh. They want to laugh.
Yeah.
You just have to just give them a reason to laugh.
And
The
some
hard,
come in the heckle.
yeah, the most of the hecklers that I get are at places where they weren't expecting to see comedy. So, like, if I'm at a bar and maybe it's this bar's first or second time hosting an open mic, and then you have the regulars that are in there that are like, oh, they just want to come in there and drink, and then you got these comics in the corner. Those are usually who are your hecklers or the people that are just in a bad mood or whatever. But like if you're at a club, like the people are there to laugh. So unless you have comics that are just bombing and bombing and bombing, like it's going to be all right.
Yeah.
A lot of people get really intimidated by it, but it's the bars and those little shows are the ones where you get eaten alive. Most of the time in the clubs, I mean, of course, there's still some assholes that get drunk in the club, but like for the most part, everyone's there to have a good time.
Yeah. What's the smallest crowd that you played to? Or
3 people.
3?
Yeah. Oh, but I consider this a zero crowd because I was at an open mic at a place called Core in North Little Rock. It was during the World Series, and there was 4 people in the crowd, all of them sitting at the bar, all of them with their backs turned to me. And I was doing my set and I was going through my jokes, and I would just pause when I would expect laughter because they weren't listening to me, and I would keep going through. And then someone in the World Series, I don't remember which game it was, but somebody hit a grand slam, and everybody goes nuts and then leaves the bar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But I mean, those type of situations, like you find you find that intestinal fortitude to sit in it and feel that awkwardness, because nothing on stage is ever going to be as bad as somebody hitting a grand slam in the World Series and then everyone leaving.
Yeah.
So
with their back
if I can make it through that, I can make it through anything.
Yeah. Now, what's the largest crowd that you played to?
I did here recently a show in Searcy with the Kleitz brothers, and we had like 110 people there. It was packed. We did it at the Elks Lodge in Searcy, and it got pretty packed. That was a big crowd. That was really crazy because that was the first time that because I've done a couple 70 and 80 seaters, but with 110 people, and the way it was set up, there was a smoking section and a non-smoking section. So
it's interesting.
Everybody wasn't sitting together, and so you weren't getting that infectious laughter and everybody laughing at once. Like part of the room would start laughing, and then you'd start losing the other part, so you'd have to address the other part. And then that's when it really felt like work to me, when I was like, the crowd was divided and I was trying to navigate and bring everybody together like herding cats.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the first time I've been on stage and I was like, wow, this feels like work.
Sometimes they give you a small area to work with as opposed to like being able to walk back and forth and, get face contact with certain parts of the audience.
I mean, usually like at that place, we just had the stage, and the lighting situation was, we had floodlights and some kind of like just random, we'll throw some lights up here. Hopefully they'll be able to see us.
Oh yeah.
And it was the first time that venue had ever done comedy, so they weren't really knowing what to expect. And so that was kind of unfortunate, but it turned out to be a great show. And it's just one of those learning things where you either sink or swim. And fortunately, I swam that day.
That's good.
Yeah.
What's the worst experience that you had in the club, as far as, maybe it was telling a bad joke, maybe it was a heckle, maybe it was a fight in the audience, or, what's the worst experience that you've encountered?
So I would honestly say that happened this week. A good friend of mine, he's a comic. I won't say his name, but he battles with depression a little bit, and every now and then he'll get real bad anxiety. We've all got to kind of lift him up and be good friends for him.
Yeah.
Well, we were in this World Series of comedy competition, and him, me, and a few of our other friends, we didn't move on to the next round. Like, we got eliminated, so we lost. And it was part of the problem was the audience vote counted as part of your score instead of the judges, which on a technicality, that's not how the competition was supposed to be set up. It's supposed to be because when we signed up for the competition, we get a rule set, and the rules said that the crowd vote is like bonus points, doesn't count against you, and like a little thing like that, we wouldn't have won anyway, so it's not that big a deal. But after the show, the club manager wanted to come up and get a picture of all of us on stage, and I guess he had a bad day, and that was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back, and was just really upset, yelling at the crowd, yelling at the manager. He was like, "Man, fuck the crowd. The crowd doesn't know comedy," and then just got like real upset. And then now we all look bad because we're all associated with it. We're all the comics, and one of the comics is yelling at the crowd, yelling at everybody. It just wasn't a good situation, and I have no ill will feelings towards the dude at all. I just know he had a bad day, and like I love the dude. It's just one of those situations where you've got to remember that at the end of the day, this is a working environment, and you've got to be a professional. Like this is, if you want to make this a job, treat it like a job. Get up in the morning, when you go to work, go to write. When you're going on stage, that's like going into an office. So you've got to treat it like such.
You got to embrace that experience. And I mean, if it's emotional and you let your emotions out, it's done and it's gone, and get it behind you and go into the next. Use that to build your next show off of. Yeah.
And I mean, it's one of those things where I felt bad because we all care. And like, because it's when you get on stage and you reveal like your most intimate ideas, like sometimes you have fucked up ideas, and sometimes you have ideas that, I mean, that's how you grow as a person. You're like, I have this idea. And then everyone's like, that's dumb. You shouldn't think that. And they're like, okay, yeah, I shouldn't think that. And then you move on. So that's how we grow as people. So, but that's a big shot to the ego that because people get attached to their ideas so much. And so like, if you have that situation and then it not go poorly, then it feels like they're rejecting you instead of rejecting your ideas.
I think musicians experience the same thing when you write an emotional song and nobody really, sheds light on it. And you're like, okay, that hit home with me and nobody else, really?
Yeah. Yeah. And I compare it, like I said earlier, I compare it a lot to jiu-jitsu, where it's like, I feel like I'm on stage as a white belt trying to get my blue belt, trying to learn, trying to make it. And it's just when you get caught, you got to tap out and move on.
Yeah.
And you can't let that ego get in the way of you learning to be better.
Yeah, because I mean, you guys are fortunate because you could be at home watching TV 8 hours a day or just playing video games and talking about being a comic, but you're out doing it. Yeah,
and that's another thing for me that I don't understand is that people that they're like, oh yeah, I really want to be a comic, but they don't show up to every mic that they can, and they're not constantly writing. And it's like, do you really want to be a comic, or do you want to say you're a comic?
Just a fantasy,
Yeah.
Just something I would like to do one time, and it's one and done. Just do one and done. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, because like if all you want to do is get on stage for 10 minutes on Friday night, and then all day Friday, all you do is sit around and watch TV, like that's not a lifestyle I want to live. I want to get out. I want to go be experiencing new things, meeting new people. That's why I want to do comedy so bad and make this my career, is because like it gives me a chance to do that. And the idea of working a 9 to 5 to make somebody else rich, like that, I would rather die than do that. And if I could live in my truck and have enough food to not have to worry about anything, but be able to do this, I'll do this till I die.
Yeah, that's a guarantee.
Yeah, and so
it'd be much more happier.
Yeah, and that's how I feel about it. And so the trick is to not get into that lazy moment where you're like, oh, I have my jokes, I can get on stage and do this tonight and be fine. Which I'm sure if you've been doing it for 30 years, you can get by with that and make a comfortable living and be fine. But with me, somebody's trying to cut my teeth and just get my foot in the door, I can't afford to sit around and waste time. Like if I'm not, like I don't watch TV anymore. I don't play, like I don't own my PlayStation anymore. I got rid of my PlayStation just because all that time is time that I could have been either writing about my past experiences or going out and getting new experiences to talk about on stage.
Yeah. Gotta get that life experience.
Yeah. And that's where most of my best material comes from, is from being with people that I care about, out doing something that I enjoy doing.
What's your Like, have you just played like in or done your shows in Arkansas and Oklahoma, or have you gone to any bigger venues or other states outside of the area?
I've done most of the surrounding states. I haven't done Mississippi and I haven't done Louisiana yet, but I've done Texas, Tennessee, Missouri, um, and I'm trying to branch out and get more experience. It's just that, like, for me, until I get my name a little more known, it's not cost efficient for me to drive to an open mic in, say, El Paso when there's an open mic in Little Rock.
Yeah.
And it's just which here coming up, I'm about to have to make a decision. There's a group of Little Rock comics that are all moving to LA to try to do comedy in LA, and they need another roommate to pay rent. And I'm not on their level yet, and I'm not at that level yet, but I'm really considering going because I feel like I'm not going to get on that level until I push myself.
Yeah, until you step over and make that step.
Yeah, and Little Rock has a great scene, and we have a lot of opportunity to get on stage and get our name out there, but it's not the same as LA, obviously.
Yeah. Do you think there's definitely more opportunity for, I guess, notoriety in LA as far as the market?
It's for me, it's not the notoriety, it's the mic time. So, like in Little Rock, I can get on stage if I'm lucky 4 times in a week. That's like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and that maybe a Sunday if all the mics line up right. Like I may be able to get on stage 5 times a week, which in LA you can get up 2-3 times a night and hit different mics a night. And it's not like I don't care about fame. I don't care about riches. That's not the reason why I'm considering going. The reason why I'm considering going is because I could get triple the mic time from living there as I can here. And the only thing that like what is guaranteed to make you better is more time on stage. And so that's what every professional comic that I listen to, all their podcasts, all their interviews, that's what they always say. They always say, the more time on stage, the better you get. And in my personal experience, that's exactly how it's been for me. The more time I spend on stage, the better I get. So that's why, because the fact that I already have friends moving there looking for a roommate means that it's way more opportune for me to afford it.
Yeah.
And then having that mic time to get better, that's what I want to do. Because once you're at a level to where you can headline and you're consistently killing, you can theoretically live wherever you want to and just work the road. But I just want to make a comfortable living.
Yeah,
something where I don't have to worry about feeding my kids.
Yeah, that's cool. When you're with other comics and maybe you see them practice or you know them as a person or you're just being funny with the guys or whatever, but when you see them on stage, does it kind of kill it in one perspective where you kind of see it as more of an act instead of authentic? And I think I think you know what I'm talking about because
yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. But for me, it's the opposite. When I get on stage, and maybe I'll have heard this story or this bit or this joke 13 times, but like comics are always working to make their stuff better. So maybe they'll have changed the setup a little bit, or they'll have tweaked something, or we'll all been hanging out and I'll been like, hey bro, you know that story you tell? I've got this great tag. Have you tried thinking on it from this angle or think about this tagline? And then seeing one of your buddies go up, do their joke, and then add the joke that you told them to make it better. Like it's just like you being up there. It's like, oh, this is awesome. The whole crowd's laughing at what you came up with. And so we work together like that a lot sometimes. I mean, what we write is 99% our own material, but every now and then your buddy will be like, hey man, I thought of this great tag for you. And then you just, like I said, iron sharpens iron. And it, when your buddy's on stage killing, even if you've heard the story before and it's just the same way you've heard before, like I'm not necessarily laughing because I'm listening to the story and the punchline's getting me. Because I mean, I know what's coming. It's not, if you take away the unexpected, it's not funny anymore.
Yeah.
That's why you can listen to a song 30 times and still enjoy it, but you're not going to listen to the same joke 30 times. But to watch one of my friends that I care about get up there and then watch the crowd react to them, I love that. And that's one reason why I feel like I'm not really getting burnt out on it, is because I have such a passion for comedy. Seeing my friends and seeing the crowd love one of my friends,
Yeah.
it just makes me motivated and makes me want to just keep doing it, keep doing better. So yeah, I still love watching my friends go up. I'll still go and listen to the same jokes that they've been telling for the past 3 weeks, trying to get this one punchline to work right. Like, it's all fun for me.
Yeah.
But but the flip side of that coin is that if I'm not really close with them, and I feel like, and this is kind of judgmental on my part, but I feel like maybe they're not working as hard. Maybe they're not writing as hard. They're being lazy. They're just coming up here doing the same 5 minutes that they've been doing for the past 2 years.
Trying to recycle.
Like, yeah, that gets on my nerves really quickly. And then that's when it's like, okay, I'm not interested in watching this at all. And if someone's working, I love watching them. But if someone's just being lazy, if you've done it enough, you can tell. You can tell when someone's on stage putting their everything into it, and you can tell when someone's half-assing it. It, like, going back to my analogy earlier, it'd be like if, like, for someone that's not used to watching it, it'd be like somebody that's never done jujitsu watching jujitsu. Like, oh wow, they're really giving it their all. Yeah. But if like you're a brown belt or a black belt and you're rolling with somebody, you can tell
if they're into it. They're just laying there.
Yeah. And so,
yeah, I have some friends that were, movie makers or writers. There's things like that, and they worked around the movie business, and they don't watch movies because watching the movies, they see it as more of a technical thing rather than the movie for itself, rather than an acting thing. And I get that sometimes, because when I listen to music or see a certain show, I'm like, oh, they done this right here, and this is how they done that. And this, the music was overdubbed here, and the words that he said didn't match his lips, and it was an overdub, or the volume wasn't the same. I have a tendency sometimes to pick those things apart, and it kind of ruins the overall experience when everybody around you doesn't know what you're talking about.
Dude, I where I get that is watching comedy online. When someone has like released a special or something, you can tell when they put a laugh track on it, or when that's not the genuine laugh from the room. Yeah, that gets on my nerves. So
yeah, I don't like that either.
I went to Kevin Hart. He filmed his Heart of the City show in Memphis this year, and so a lot of the local Memphis comics got to go on it, which was really, really cool. And I was fortunate enough to get to go to the filming of it.
Oh, nice.
So I was actually in the crowd during the filming of it, which was great, until like before the show, we all had to do they were like, all right, laugh like you heard something's a little funny. Then we all laughed. It's like, now laugh like you heard the funniest thing you've ever heard in your life. Oh, and they did all those shots. And they said that it was to make sure that in case during the filming of the show, if they didn't get a shot right, they could go back and edit it later. But it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. And then that was like when I just first started comedy too. Yeah. So then now that I'm several more months into it, or almost a year into it now, and then I watch comics that's not doing a live show where it's like a recording, I can tell when they've done that, when they've put one of those laughs in, because maybe they had a joke that didn't hit as well as they wanted it to. And that is dirty, because it looks really, because if you don't know what to look for, it looks really cool for someone that doesn't know it. But for me, I'm like, man, that's cheap. You shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, same 3 laughs, just 3 different shots.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe which it's kind of easy for me to sit here and talk shit when I'm at a host open mic level. So maybe when I get to that level, I'll understand it more of the technical aspect of what it is to capture a comedy show. Because it is different watching it on TV versus being there live. It's a completely different vibe, a completely different experience. And there's a lot of comics that you'll watch their Netflix special and you're like, okay, this guy, you'll get some chuckles. But if you see them live, like, your stomach will be hurting and you won't be able to breathe. Yeah. So it's just that because laughter is infectious, and it you get on those vibes with everybody in the room, and you can feel it, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not
Start riding
just
that wave.
yeah. And so maybe when I get to that level, I'll realize why they have to do that, and I'll be like, oh, well, I've been a hypocrite this whole time. But right now, it irks me when I can tell that a comic's been doing that.
I don't necessarily think it makes you a hypocrite. You're in a learning process, and you start here, and then you learn better as you go. That doesn't necessarily make you a hypocrite unless you're, still doing the contrary, years
Yeah,
later when you know better.
yeah,
Because I
yeah,
always think that, people are allowed to change their opinion. You may say something here today, and you look back, shoot, a week from now or 2 years from now, and think, well, I kind of changed my mind about that.
yeah,
That's how we move forward. But I mean,
yeah.
some
I
people will
mean, if you're
judge
not,
you for that. I won't.
well, thanks, man.
Oh yeah. I think what you're doing is cool because anybody that's out there doing what they want to do and they're doing it 100% or 120%, it's more power to them. Sometimes, some people are doing the wrong things 120%, but I mean,
Yeah,
they're always a step ahead of that person that's just the dreamer and just, not doing anything at all, just all talk.
yeah. I started college, wanting to be an engineer, and I thought that I liked engineering, and I'm good at engineering, but I'm not passionate about it. And I always would like kind of be a little judgy of people doing like fine arts degrees or like a theater degree or a music degree. I was like, what are you going to do with that? You're not gonna be able to get a job. Like, why would you waste your time with that?
Oh yeah.
But I had never had a creative outlet before.
Hmm.
And then once I found this and I started doing it, then all of a sudden I was like, I start looking at engineers like, why are you doing this? Why are you not being creative? Why are you like, you're wasting your life? Like, I would like, if I could create something like, have you ever seen the show Crashing on HBO?
No.
It is a show about comics about a dude named Pete Holmes. It follows
Oh
his
yeah.
journey from an open micer up. It's a
Uh-huh.
really, really funny, well written show. But there's a moment in there where he gets his first hotel room from comedy, and like he breaks down and starts crying. And the reason why I connected with that show so much is because I did the exact same thing. When the very first time that I had a booker give me a hotel room for the night that
Hmm.
I didn't pay for, that my work did, like I got in the room and I was like, wow, thoughts in my brain are what paid for all this. And I did, dude. I started crying.
Yeah, that's
I just,
success.
it's a happy, happy feeling
Hmm.
to know that my resourcefulness and that it was me that got this.
That's cool.
And
Yeah.
that's and now, so like I see musicians now, I'll see actors, I'll see, like you said, people that are genuinely following their dream.
Hmm.
And it's just, I have nothing but 110% support for
I kind of done
them.
that one time. I had a performance at a college, and I went and made a performance, and they gave me some me and my family some vouchers to eat, free
Yeah,
food, and I was like, wow, this stuff is paying off. This is
that's
exciting.
awesome. Yeah, I know that feeling, man. It's a
Yeah.
good feeling.
So it doesn't have to be the $1 million check, to feel that success, that you
Yeah,
get. Those are
and
memories.
yeah, and here recently, I'm finally starting to get that feeling of because before I would get on stage, and I've been very fortunate to have been able to share the stage with some comics that are light years ahead of where I'm at, and so being able to here recently, I've been getting on stage and feeling like I belong. Like even though this week, like the
Nice.
World Series, I got eliminated,
Uh-huh.
I felt like I competed. I felt like I gave it my all, and I was right there. I just like missed it by this or that. And
Hmm.
anybody can make excuses, but like I felt like I had actually competed and brought something to the table. And that is another really good feeling where it's like, okay, I don't feel like I'm pretending to be
Hmm.
a comedian anymore. I feel like I'm actually a comedian.
Yeah. Reach that milestone, and plus you're competing to be better than yourself, not always better than the next person, because somebody just likes you, they're gonna like you.
Right.
They may not like the
Right.
winner.
Right. And that's how I'm starting to get kind of about comedy competitions. It's great for up and comers, and it's great for to challenge yourself and do that. But at the same time, it's subjective and it's art.
Yeah.
And if I could lose every competition that I've ever been in for the rest of my life, and I would still have a passion for it. And I know I would still be able to get on the stage and make people laugh because that's what I love to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not all about the competitions. And of course, like, you don't see Kevin Hart going to competitions. You don't see Chris Rock going to competitions. Like, they know they're funny. They've proven themselves. Like, I'm just not saying that I'm gonna be a Kevin Hart or a Chris Rock. I'm just saying that that's like, it's not all about competitions when it comes to art.
Mm-hmm. Who do you look who do you look up to most as like a comic? Like when you really got deep in the comedy, who's your go-to guy? Like, I just gotta hear everything and see all of his work, and I want to find, I want to educate myself about that person. Which comic is that?
Well, it started off being Joe Rogan. So I got into, I started comedy and got the, like, I've always been a fan of it, but I got that confidence when I was watching Joe Rogan's podcast and he started telling Brennan Schaub to do it. And then Brennan Schaub did it and then has been successful with it. And so, like, I was just such a fan of Rogan's and MMA and Rogan's stand up and all that stuff. And his podcast, I was like, well, I mean, he's telling his friends to do it. Like, I'm no different. I can do it. And then I really started getting into it. And, like, now it's Joey Diaz. Like, Joey Diaz he's so funny, but listening to his story and, like, listening to him talk about his life and what he's been through, the hardships he's overcome, the mistakes he's made.
Yeah.
But then he relates it all back to, like, where he was in his comedy career. And it's like, I just relate to it so much. And I just, for me, it's Joey Diaz. My comedy Mount Rushmore would probably be Joe Rogan, Joey Diaz, Chris Rock, and Dave Chappelle.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that's my, those are my top 4 comics that I aspire to be like.
Mm-hmm. Did you know Rogan before, like his MMA bit, or did you kind of find his comedy after, martial arts?
I found his comedy after martial arts. So I knew because I've watched the UFC since I was a little kid, from watching the early days of The Ultimate Fighter. And I've always been a big fan of fighting and just that level of intense competition. Yeah. And of course, I'd seen Fear Factor when I was a kid too. And so I knew of Joe Rogan, and it was, I believe 2015-ish, 2014-ish, when maybe I'd seen or heard an old comedy album that Rogan had produced. I was at work and I was bored, and I was like, okay, I just want to listen to some, because I was working security at the time, and I was working a gate, and it was in the middle of the night, and there wasn't any drivers coming through my gate. So it's kind of like you have nothing to do. So I looked up some Rogan stand-up, and when I was on YouTube looking it up, his podcast came up, and I had never heard of his podcast before. And so I watched some of his stand-up, started listening to some of his podcasts, and I was like, wow, I really like the way he's doing this. And then I just kept listening, it kind of grew from there.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I first saw Rogan on, what's his name? The name I just went blank.
Yeah.
Howard Stern. Yeah, that's the name I'm thinking of. I first saw Rogan on Howard Stern's show doing some, I don't know, he was like maybe an analyst or something, or doing some talking on there, but that's where I first saw him. And I didn't really know he was a comic until they started talking about he was a comic. I could believe in some other episodes. And, I didn't think he was that great of a comic at the time, but he was, I think he was just starting out, so his comedy then and now was totally different. So I knew him as the comic first before I knew him as, the martial art person. Yeah.
Dude, I went to Houston. My Christmas present from my family this year, they got me Joe Rogan tickets in Houston. And I went and watched, and Frank Castillo opened for him. And it was amazing. It was hilarious, and I loved it. But also to watch him command a room of 4,000 drunk people. And, like, because we were sitting pretty much in the back, and to his mastery of being able to work, because like every now and then you have people around us talking or someone not paying attention, or maybe you wouldn't be able to hear exactly what he said because of the crowd around you. And like it was like he was keenly aware of all of that and timed it perfectly to where we could all still be included in the show.
Wow.
And that was just, I mean, it was like watching somebody that's been playing violin for 30 years go up and play violin. It was just beautiful to see.
Sweet.
And really enjoyed it. And Frank Castillo did an amazing job. That was the first time I'd ever heard of Frank Castillo, which since then I've educated myself and started following him on social media and stuff. But yeah, Frank Castillo opened for him, and he did a masterful job too. Did the exact same thing. Was very, very funny, and then just commanded the room. And I have nothing but the utmost respect for those guys because of it.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot on your shoulders, but you know, you build that experience, and it's just another day for some of them.
Yeah, and it was kind of funny because Rogan was talking on his podcast. He was like, "Yeah, we were going to the show, and there was all this traffic, and we were like, man, what are all these people doing down here at this time?" Because he was worried about being late to the stadium.
Yeah.
And then he realized that, oh, these are all people coming to see my show. He was stuck in his own traffic.
And that's a good thing to have.
Yeah, that's a good problem to have.
Uh-huh.
I've never had that problem.
But I mean, you keep going. I'm sure you will someday.
Yeah, that's the goal, man.
Uh-huh. So what's next for you?
I've got a show on May 5th in Kansas. It'll be my first time doing comedy in Kansas, so I'm excited about it. And it's a Cinco de Mayo show. I don't know what that means, but the booker was like, "Hey, you want to come do a Cinco de Mayo show?" I was like, "Yeah, I guess." I don't know if he's expecting Cinco de Mayo material or what, but I got to talk to him this week about exactly what he's expecting. But yeah, I'm gonna get to do 15 minutes up there, so it's a long set for me. You know, for other comics, it's a short set, but for me, where I'm at, that's a long set. So I'm really excited, really happy to get on the road and do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, other than that, I've got this summer right now I currently live in a camper. And so I'll be moving my camper to Little Rock because I'm not in class this summer. Mm-hmm. So I'll be moving my camper to Little Rock so that I can be closer to the mics, hopefully get some more gigs, and then decide if in the fall if I'm going to be going back to school or if I'm going to be going to LA with those other comics.
Yeah. Got some decisions to make for the future.
Yeah, it's daunting, but I'm excited and I think I'm up for the challenge.
Mm-hmm. Is there any places like social media outlets that people can come check out like clips of your work or just get to know the person that you are?
Yeah. My social media for Twitter and Instagram is @Bair the Comic, BairTheComic. But I've got one or two videos on YouTube, but there was some stuff that I had to post for a competition. Mm-hmm. I don't really like putting a lot of my material online just yet, just because
there's vultures out there.
Yeah, I have so little material right now. Once you put it online and people have heard it, then it's kind of like, okay, well, we've heard that joke. And so if they come to see your show. Again. Yeah. And so on my Instagram, there's a couple of set up punchlines from different stories where I just put like one punchline up with a laugh on it just to let everybody see what I'm working on, something new and everything. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, if you want to see me, come see me live. I post on my Instagram, my Facebook, and my Twitter. I post all of my dates and everything. So,
that's good.
Yeah, if anybody wants to come check it out, they're more than welcome to.
Mm-hmm. And everybody listening out there, if you want to laugh, make sure you go check him out, catch one of his shows. Because like I said, he's going to be in Little Rock sometime. You catch him now before he hits the road and heads out to L.A., or maybe he's back in school and you don't hear him anymore. You don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss somebody at this caliber that's, local and you have an opportunity to support.
All right. Well, I appreciate the love, man.
Oh, no problem, man. I'm glad you, accepted the invitation to come on the show. I like talking to people, get different experiences. Talk to people, and that's why we call the show Mega Talks. Talking Mega Talks about people's lives, and
Well, heck yeah, man. As soon as you get it posted, let me know. I'll share it everywhere I can.
Cool, man. I'll let you know, and I'm sure I'll be talking with you sometime soon. Hopefully, we'll run across each other, maybe train, maybe share some laughs. I'm sure you can keep me laughing.
Oh, I'm always down, man.
All right. Well, you have a great rest of your day. I won't keep you too long.
Yeah,
So we can get back to writing.
Man. Yeah.
All right.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. Take care, man.
Yep.